If you're a non-black woman who wants to date a black man because he tells you you're his preference, listen closely because this is the only honest advice you're going to get. If you want to be that man's preferred partner, you're going to have to accept that your role is strictly ceremonial. Because that man doesn't want you for your character, your personality, anything that makes you you. He wants you for what you represent. And your relationship is going to be more showboat than it is love boat. Let me break it to you this way. You gonna be that man's Gucci belt. All their lives, men have been conditioned to believe they should want and need a Gucci belt. Getting a Gucci belt is about leveling up in life. So when that man finally scores a Gucci belt, what's he gonna do? He's gonna wear that thing out. He's gonna wear it all day, every day. He's gonna tuck his winter coat into his pants just so everyone can see that he has a Gucci belt. He don't care nothing about the integrity of that belt. He don't care if it's old, if it's fake, if it's a pleather belt from TJ Maxx with a Gucci emblem glued on it that he stole from his mama's purse. He just wants to be the known as the man who wears the Gucci belt.
Gucci belt, huh? So is that what we're doing today? We're comparing men who go outside the box, and their preference in maybe a non-black woman to a clothing item. Is that what we're doing today? Whatnot? All right. Well, anybody gets into a relationship, there's that newness there, It's always a newness. You're getting to know the person. There's excitement. There's the learning of another person. Ideally speaking today and shit, but unfortunately, things have been inverted, tossed on their heads, because you could be looking for an emotional connection, and you could be in a relationship with a person that is a sociopath. Somebody sees you in terms of what you can do for them. All right, they're not looking to make any deeper connection other than what they can get out of you, like a fucking gold miner and shit. And frankly, you talk like an opportunist. All right, you're an opportunist that your opportunities dried up and shit. You went as far as you could go with your skin complexion and shit, and your white woman disguise, and then you hit the fucking wall way too early and shit. You're kind of chubby, you got a stunted neck and shit, and God knows what else is going on down there. Now you're bitter, and you want other people to share your fate and shit of sitting up with a bunch of cats and shit, turning the heat on and off and shit, and, walking back and forth in your house. You want them to share your fate, all right? I want to tell you, young women, okay? I'm not going to call you queens or nothing, like gods, any of that bullshit. Do you really read the room and shit? Do you know who you're listening to? Do you know who you're taking advice from? All right? You guys are the most educated, the most traveled and shit inside our ethnic community and everything, but you don't seem to learn nothing. All right? You don't seem to learn nothing and shit. When I look at this woman, I see like an opportunist and shit. Somebody that, she's a bottom feeder. Okay? She's a social bottom feeder and shit. She's mad about it and shit. And now she wants to sit up and bitch and shit because she thinks social media gives her some kind of power and shit. To get her a pen out there and shit, and infuse it into you like a virus. And for some of you, it's gonna work and shit. Some of you gonna actually listen to her and shit. Anybody meets you for the first time, they wanna get to know you, or they wanna be around you a lot and shit. And that's the part of a relationship. What's lost is everything that comes after it. And you can't take advice from somebody like this. You can't take it, at least take it with a grain of salt and shit if you have any common sense. This lady is a fucking opportunist, man. As a matter of fact, just looking at her, she reminds me, I'm going to drop a story and shit. She reminds me of, in my more naive days, one time when I lived on the West Coast, I lived near Staples Center. At the time, it was somewhat brand new. I was pressed into service to help some black women, like, one of them looked just like this one. You know, I ran into some tourists. They were visiting from Washington D.C. During the DNC, and it was like I think it was maybe two or well, it was three of them at first, and then one dropped off. And one of them looked like Thelma Hopkins, and the other one looked just like this motherfucker right here. And I'll never forget this. You know, I helped them go for they couldn't find their hotel or something, so I escorted them to their hotel. And I escorted them up to their rooms and everything. And I actually had the lady that looks like this one's like luggage, like a Zapulon. So I went and put it in her room, and she went in there. And I didn't know what she was. She walked into her room, and I put the luggage down and said, "Hey, I'll see you around and shit. You got my number. You could call me and shit." Because they were talking about they were gonna pay me. They were gonna pay me to show them around or something. I really didn't want to do it, but it was like I got raised a certain way and shit. I got fucked up, and I got raised to be a good person and shit. So I put the luggage in there, and then the little one that looked just like this motherfucker right here. She's supposed to be like a all into her church and her religion, one of those, right? One of these church women and shit. And she started this spiel. I actually listened to this for a minute, like 10 minutes or so, or less. She was talking that, sometimes you have to, you have lust that gets out of control, and you have to slake your lust and some shit she was saying. And I didn't know what to say about that. I was just like looking at her. I was like, ugh. She was making a pass at me, but she was so fucking awkward. She didn't know how to talk to a man. She didn't know how to talk to a man and shit. And, I guess, I wasn't doing shit. I was just like, yeah. She unbuttoned some buttons on her blouse and shit. And I just say, hey, have a nice one. And I pulled the door up and walked away. And then by the time I had walked home, the other one that, the one that looked like Thelma Hopkins had called me like fucking probably 5 or 6 times by the time I had went back to my house, to my apartment and shit. And I was like, what the fuck, right? I said, almost in mercy, let me call her back. I called her back, and she was like, oh, what you doing? You got some young women over there? You mess around with these young girls? And I was like, fuck y'all. I was like, both of these some goddamn closeted perverts and shit. They're older than me, government employees, 6 figures apiece, I forgot what they did, but they were there. They had DNC, they had DNC like fucking IDs and everything, just the official shit or whatever. And I was just like, damn, what's the fuck wrong with these bitches? Why are they so desperate? I guess they were spinsters. They didn't have no fucking husband or nothing and shit, And this little one that looked just like this motherfucker, she wanted some action right off the rip. Right? But she had, the way she talked just grossed me out. When I was growing up, the church was something sacred and all that kind of shit. For some reason. It was real sacred. So she was talking about a bunch of church shit. I just ignored her. I was going to get some pussy anyway. Like, I had somebody lined up. I wasn't actually doing that. It wasn't on my itinerary or nothing that day. But like, this chick made an awkward pass at me. And then, like, the other one had blew up my phone and shit. And then they was talking some shit, They was like, oh, you must not want no money or nothing. And I was just like, man, fuck these bitches. I was like, fuck these bitches. I lived in Los Angeles, motherfucker. This pussy, there was women all over the fucking place and shit that I had my choice of at that time. Black, Spanish, Asian. Right? I had a lot of different flavors of food, I'll put it that way. But I'll never forget that opportunist. Every time I think about that lady that looked just like this one, I get mad as hell and shit, because you always got these sisters like doing dirty ass, nasty behind the door shit. And then when it don't go their way and shit, they get super bitter, and they gotta drink their lemonade and shit. And they want other young women to listen to their bullshit and drink that fucking lemonade too and shit. Well, all I gotta say is like, hey, you wish you were a Gucci belt, but you ain't a Gucci belt. You a standard 99-cent belt from fucking Walmart.